So next we will go to the Dominican sisters. Now the Dominicans were latecomers to Springfield. They had established their mother house in Jacksonville just recently, 1873, where their first residence was an overcrowded, poorly ventilated home that led to serious illness and death for some of the pioneer sisters. In 1890, they began teaching here at St. Mary's Parish School, which would become Cathedral School, where I first encountered them. Then in 1893, but not back in 1890, more recently than that. Then in 1893, they relocated their mother house to this block, purchased from Lincoln Du Bois, the godson and namesake of our city's favorite son. Like the Ursuline sisters and the Hospital Sisters of St. Francis, the Dominicans had a transformative effect on our city, providing education for girls with a boarding school and a day school, and widening the space of the tent for Catholic women and their families in the city. Here's a whirlwind tour of some of the ways the Dominicans have influenced Springfield.
Our motto, Veritas, truth, has guided our sisters' commitment to secondary education on this very spot for nearly 125 years.
Sacred Heart Griffin is committed to keeping this mission alive. Today, families in and around Springfield trust us to educate their young people through the Dominican values of study, prayer, service, and community.
Here at the Dominican Sisters, our eldest Dominican sisters continue to live the Dominican mission.
You're right, Becky. I take care of the sisters' physical health, and from there I receive the blessings of their kindness and prayer.
It's true. Our sisters pray for all of you. We pray for the Springfield community and the needs of the entire world, and we do this for the life of the world.
Our presence on Springfield's east side has helped us to clarify our vision of the beloved community and our part in bringing it to life.
We have made a commitment to answer the call of the Holy Spirit into anti-racism. And we've discovered that the best way to do this is through our relationships across the divide of race, class, and economic status.
Once we began to truly see, we couldn't unsee. Jesus' call to inclusive love requires our response. In the past, we might have initiated and implemented local immigrant programs ourselves.
Now, in a spirit of collaboration, the Dominican Sisters partner with many Springfield organizations, such as the Springfield Immigrant Advocacy Network. They lend their hearts and hands, time and treasure, voices and prayers to the task of transforming the world.
Our Dominican sisters began teaching here at St. Patrick's School in 1910 when it opened. We're still here. This is my 8th year.
I serve on the governing board of St. Patrick's School, assuring the values-based Catholic education that is our commitment to the children and their future.
I've inherited the Dominican Sisters' legacy of education rooted in their faith and their commitment to overcoming the barriers of systemic racism.
Yes, Michael, 20 years ago, the landscape in Springfield changed when the Dominicans committed to becoming anti-racist.
Today, anti-racism is being integrated into many institutions, from policing to healthcare, from education to social services.
It is a lifelong challenge to repair and heal the wounds of racism that impact everyone.
Now let's welcome Sister Kathleen Ann Tate and Vicki Schmidt up to the front. So sister, we'll start with you. From your days as a student at Little Flower, I'd like to hear some of those stories, to your service as an educational leader and mission advancement director, you have a broad perspective on the gifts and challenges of Dominican life. What do you see as the current gift of the Dominicans to Springfield and the world, and what challenges are you facing?
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I have been connected with the Dominicans since my grade school years at Little Flower, my high school years at Sacred Heart Academy, and now 50 years of Vowed Dominican life. So they're stuck with me, I think. Those Little Flower days were when our sisters and the sisters, all of our sisters, Ursulines and Franciscans, we both got kind of the same message with this. But we were the labor force of the church, particularly in schools and hospitals. And those teachers created structured classrooms and set high academic standards. More importantly, they created an atmosphere of care and compassion. I remember Sister Pauletta's gracious smile and her compassionate disposition. I also remember that we had to walk 2 blocks apart on the tile in straight lines at the school. But I also remember Sister Sharon Ann, who used to play with us on the playground, especially on dodgeball days. That took a lot of courage. So when you think back, what was our influence, or what kind of influence did we have on our city? Well, a lot of you knew our sisters as educators, or knew the Ursuline sisters as educators, and you have your own stories. But probably, if you just think about it, since 1979, every mayor of this city has been a graduate of a Catholic school, either the Ursulines or the Dominicans. When you look at the professional people in Springfield, when you look at the accountants and the engineers, 80% of them have been taught by sisters in Springfield. And so I even can remember having the police chief, yes, Ken Scarlett, in my 5th grade classroom when I was teaching at Cathedral. So what was the impact of our sisters? We educated leaders. We provided an education that included the morals that came from the gospel, an understanding of Christian community, taking responsibilities to help one another, and working toward the common good. We trained future educators who are teaching in the schools that we used to staff today. And I think that's our challenge. We're no longer the labor force we had before. However, with every challenge, there's also opportunities. And those opportunities for us included networking with others and deepening the relationships formed within our service. When we talk about God's mission for us today, we recognize that it's more about influence and transformation than being a labor force. Religious life itself is considered the courageous few who are on the edge of the church pushing it forward. So that transition from the labor force to influence for us started about 30 years ago. And you saw a little bit of this on the video too. But there were events happening in Springfield that impacted us. It was the destruction of the John Hay homes and starting of scattered site housing, okay? And at that point, our sisters, who are part of a larger Dominican family, were on fire with the passion for the gospel justice. And so we had to take a step back, and that prompted us to recognize that we wanted to influence and we wanted to shape society. And we knew we couldn't do it alone. So we did it with networking. And that happened for us in the sense that we reached out to religious leaders, both Catholic, Protestant, churches on the streets or on the front, And they all came together and we had meetings with different neighborhoods at that point. And we did some listening. We listened to the concern. What is going to happen to property values with scattered site housing? How is it going to impact the neighborhoods? And we use them as opportunities to also talk about how do we care for the poor? And how do we work together to make Springfield a better place? That started us on our road for our two major social justice efforts. Again, dismantling systemic racism and also care for the earth. With the racism, all those conversations led us to helping form the Springfield Project. Now, we didn't do that alone. I mean, it was the mayor's office, it was a lot of other people, and Springfield Project is still going today. They're still working to make Springfield a better place and to spread diversity and to help that. We also, as we moved, 20 years ago, we decided to 20 years ago, when we made our commitment to dismantle racism, we knew we couldn't do that alone. We did that together. And we had a team of people who came. Now, since that time, members of our team and the choice to do that, you know, we decided we wanted to dismantle racism within the congregation, in our schools, and our hospital. 20 years later, we're still doing that. Why? Because you can't make systemic change within the Dominican Sisters or within a city overnight. And when you're talking about influence and transformation, it's not sequential, okay? It's spiral. And so with our work on that, how is that spread? Members of our team took this effort to St. John's Hospital, to Memorial, and they embraced that. How do we embrace diversity? How do we dismantle racism? Members of our team also worked with SCOTR, which is the Springfield Coalition on Dismantling Racism. And it was a group of people that came together with the same values. They've done training for the police department. We started the Innocence Project, or helped with the Innocence Project. You know, taking innocent prisoners out of the prisons. And we didn't do that alone. We did that in coalition with the mayor's office. We did that in coalition with the colleges and stuff. So basically, you know, when you think about those kinds of impacts on other areas, Larry Golden was at the Innocence Project event a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that he mentioned to me was, if it wasn't for Sister Mary Jean Traeger and the Springfield Dominicans, the Innocence Project wouldn't be operational today. And over 170 people have been exonerated through that project over the years. So the efforts towards racial justice also opened up for us other areas where there are inconsistencies. Okay, so when you think about women and how sometimes they're on the short end, okay? We started Mercy Project here in Springfield. We've recently started it in a literacy center right here on the property. Okay, so we've reached out in those ways, and it sounds like we're doing a lot, but remember, it's not us. You know, we've partnered. It's that collaboration with others that help us move. The other thing that we're really involved in at this point, too, is care of the earth. And if you haven't been to Jubilee Farm, it's 5 miles down Monroe Street and you'll run into it. But the staff there has talked about how creation and creatures are interconnected, and our responsibility to care for Earth because the Earth has cared for us. It's also a center for spirituality. And at this point, I'm going to stop my presentation because I know Vicky's gonna pick up on that a little bit. But that's basically what we're involved in right now.
Okay. So Vicki, as an experienced spiritual guide and influential laywoman in a church, who also happens to be a Dominican associate, what have the Dominicans shared with you that you now pass on to others?
Well, so much. And my life has been infiltrated with religious women from early days. And the Dominican sisters were an early part of that. And they taught religion class, catechism classes when I was in the second grade at St. John Danny in Sherman. To say that religious women...
Could you bring the mic a little closer to yourself, please? Thank you.
To say that religious women have impacted my life is an understatement. They have been a part of my life from the very beginning. And I say today, the Dominicans, the Franciscans, and the Ursulines, I wouldn't be who I am today without their influence. Carry on?
Yes.
Yeah. We can all say that, right? Can't we all say that?
Yeah. No, I was about to say same.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I have great memories of Saturday mornings riding with my dad, who, when it was his turn to go and pick up the sisters for religion class on Saturday mornings. I thought I was in the presence of God when the sisters got in the car. It was just that strong of a memory for me. Then later in high school, and I'm going to name some Dominicans that played a role in that for me. Sister Charlotte Rebbe, in my teenage years, would come out to Sherman and help us form a youth choir. And I remember in the early days that the first song that we sang as a little choir was Kumbaya. And one Sunday when she couldn't come out, we snuck in Michael Row the Boat Ashore. It's a great applause at the end. But my grandmother, Helen Schmidt, lived in Riverton, and my father grew up there. And my grandma worked at the sanitarium, the TV sanitarium, so the pictures of the sand and just remembering her stories. But she would often take us out, having immigrated here from Germany. She would take us out to visit the German sisters, and I remember, and we would always visit the Adoration Chapel, and we would always kneel on that hard granite in front of the sanctuary, and 3 people told me I could tell this story, so we're kneeling in front of the sanctuary, and my brother Dave, who is a year older than me, we were 5 and 6, farted. In the grand silence of that beautiful chapel. I just remember my grandma reaching her arm around me and smacking him in the head. And our grand silence was ended at that point. But there were so many other beautiful, memorable moments in that chapel throughout my whole life. In the mid-'70s, Sister Zachary, Sister Pat Stark joined us in our Helpers of Christ program in Sherman, where we went to southern Missouri and to Mississippi and rebuilt homes for low-income families. They were involved in my life then. Many years later, when I was employed at the Villa Retirement Center, Sister Ann Catherine, Sister Wilma, Sister Celestine came out to provide pastoral care to the residents there. Their presence was so dear to everyone. I remember loving having them there and having them as a presence among the many people who were living out there. All these experiences in my early years really worked to develop a sense of community. In addition to our active parish life in Sherman, I had a strong sense of community, and at 24 even became interested in the work of Mother Teresa of Calcutta and went to India to experience her work. And so the spiritual development continued to grow. And later, many years later, I was called to serve as executive director of Teresians International, and an organization that with members in 8 countries. And I served with them for 21 years, and my office was right here. So that, I think that was a blessing in that that's what drew me in to become a Dominican associate all those years ago in 2007. And just being here, being in the presence of the sisters, I still am in shock that Sienna Hall is gone when I get out of my car, because that's where my office was all those years. But becoming a Dominican associate really drew me into the community and made me feel a part of the community and allowed me to say, this is also my family. And I know many of our associates feel the same way. And then when I met the sisters at Jubilee Farm, my gosh, what an amazing experience that was to get to know them and to understand what their mission was at Jubilee Farm. If you haven't been, please go. It's just a beautiful environment. The sisters are doing wonderful, wonderful work there. I participated in a study group there for 10 years where we read books from some of the most amazing writers in the topic of the new universe story and the new cosmology, and understanding what is our place in this universe, this vast universe. It's so different than what we grew up with. To expand our thinking and our understanding, to envelop that ideal of we are just a speck in this universe, and yet we are the apple in God's eye. And that was a profound understanding for me, very much so. And receiving spiritual direction from the sisters over the years, 3 sisters provided spiritual direction. For me, the last one was Sister Kathleen Kaur, who passed away suddenly a few years ago. She inspired me to look for a program so that I could become a spiritual director. And so all through my life, religious women have been impacting me and calling me forward to become more. You know, God is always calling us forth, Always calling us forth to become who God wants us to be. And we just have to say a resounding yes. And so I am so grateful for the sisters along the way who prompted me and encouraged me and had more faith and confidence in me than I had in myself. So grateful. To see the active work of the Dominican sisters in Springfield and Central Illinois and Peru and everywhere where they have worked, to see them corporately committed to living the gospel, I'm inspired and encouraged by who they are and what they do. This is just a small iteration of their great witness to the gospel, but we have been witnesses to their 150 years of education, of educating our children and educating us, for God's sakes, to helping us become who God is calling us to become. We witness their commitment to the issues of poverty and racism and equality, as Kathleen so beautifully shared. We know they are a significant force for healing in our community. And let us never take that for granted, the presence of healing that they have of all the sisters in our community. The medical healing, the educational healing, the healing in the so many issues in our community. And I've been working with, I was drawn into working with our Guatemalan immigrants in Springfield, really because of the influence of the sisters. And to see the work that they have done at the Literacy Center in Aurora, for over 30 years, they have taught immigrant women the English language so that they could better acclimate to life here in the United States. And they're doing it here in Springfield now. In less than a year, we have 17 mentors mentoring 17 Hispanic women, and it's just going to grow. So keep that in your prayers. Their chapter, I'm always excited when their chapters roll around because I get excited about what they're going to discern. I want to hear what they've discerned for all of us. Because as a Dominican associate, when they discern new mission, new commitments for the next 6 years, I want to try and fulfill that in my own life as a Dominican associate. I love the motto that they have, for the life of the world. The Dominican sisters, everything that they do, the Ursuline sisters, the Franciscan sisters, they do it for the life of this world that we all live in. And I couldn't get more excited about that as a motto for my own faith. We do it for the life of the world. We do it to live the gospel. We do it for all those reasons. But I love that line, for the life of the world. So I'm deeply grateful to all the religious women that have impacted my life, especially these here. I'm also a graduate of Springfield College, too. So, yeah, we've got them all wrapped up there. Thank you.